Thirsty, thirsty, trying to choose. I know I'm pretty cool. My nitty bag, my kitty boots. I got the juice, I got the juice.
Channel, Chatham's on. Foolies glad I'm home. Even my haters kinda glad I'm on. Rest in peace to my vagabond. Rapper, song, singer, suspended, subpoena for misdemeanors. Dreamer, held back asses, Loki's.
Welcome to Young Bass Fishing with Evan Velos. So this episode I'm going to break down some different types of lures that you're going to be using in springtime and different techniques that I would personally use to catch bass in springtime. So why fish in the spring? Well, bass come up from the deeper waters into the shallow to start making their beds for spawning season. So this springtime and early spring is the pre-spawn to spawn time period, and it's proven that the most amount of bass that you will catch in a year will be within the months of February to May. And this early springtime, what happens is once the water gets warmer and vegetation starts growing, it gives the bass a place to hide. It gives them more of a reason to come up, and therefore they spawn, and all the bigger bass that you'll be catching from your onshore as an onshore angler will be easier to catch being early spring to springtime. So just a few lures that I'll be presenting and I will be showing off today are our jerkbaits category, our lipless cranks, our spinner baits, and our jigs. So before we talk about the presentation and how these lures are meant to be fished, let's talk about where to fish. On a sunny, bright day, you're going to have bass lingering in that 4 foot to 8 foot water depth. And because it's warm, they're up and they're looking for food. When it's a little colder and your water temperature is below 60 degrees, the bass will be lingering around the 10 to 15 foot area. So an ideal spot, you'll have a shallow point of 4 to 8 feet drop off into that 10 to 15 foot area. Being an onshore angler, it's going to be a lot easier to get deeper and bring your lure up the bank, up to your shallows. And so you'll cover a lot more ground that way, and you'll also have more luck when fishing because you'll be covering both the deeper waters and the shallow waters looking for lethargic bass or active bass in the shallow waters. So what to look for when looking for a fishing spot? You're walking down and you're looking for vegetation or structure or anything in the water that you could see the bass potentially hiding in, like rocks or anything like that. And so therefore, you want to fish those points, you want to knock around your lures by those points. Bass are predatory species, therefore they're going to use all those hiding places and the crevices between to hide and to trap their prey and their little bait fish, bait fish or crawfish or anything like that. So in that case, you want to fish near structure. And so just remember, you want to fish that shallow to your deeper, the 4 to 8 to your 10 to 15. And if it has any type of structure, vegetation like that, that is your ideal fishing spot. So now that we found our ideal fishing spot, we're going to start off in the early springtime. So if you fish where there's ice on the lake, this is right as the ice is clearing up, right as your waters are very, very cold. And so this is meant for a lethargic bass that's not quite looking to chase anything down, looking just for an easy meal. So what I would use first, what I'm throwing out very early spring, is going to be your So without quite explaining how to use a jerkbait yet, I'm going to imagine myself as a bass in cold water coming out of the springtime, coming up from my deeper waters. This can be fished deep and anywhere really. I'm going to look for something that's an easy meal, something that's going to be really easy, not going to put up a fight. So how you use a jerkbait. A jerkbait is suspending on the water. Let's say this is the water. It's going to be right on that water. And the key to using a successful jerkbait is having a cadence all the way through your reeling. And most anglers will throw out the term cadence and they'll do their thing, and you can't quite break it down. So a cadence, what you're going to do is you're going to have a pattern of bringing this in with occasional twitches in your rod and pauses. Those pauses are when the bass are most likely going to strike. So bringing it in, for an example, you'd have twitch, twitch, pause. And you'd have your pause to 4 to 8 seconds depending on how cold the water is. And bringing it all the way in with that cadence will increase your chances of a bass really hitting this as you're pausing. And so this is our first category, jerk baits. The color I usually prefer is a more natural shad color. Sometimes your greens will work. There's definitely different sizes, but I'd say this is about an average size for a good spring day that you'd use. So this would be our first category as our jerk baits. So our category of lipless crankbaits will offer the most variety, whether that be variety in colors, varieties of weight, or varieties in rattles, and most of them do have the rattles. So I'm going to tell you what's worked for me personally, and depending on your situation, what's most likely going to work for you. So my first tip before I tell you how to work one of these is fish what's in your waters. If you have small bait schooling and the glimmer and the shine, I would recommend a shiny lipless crankbait like these. This is a rattle trap, but they are so many different sizes that if the bass aren't biting one of these and you know that there's those silver shad in there, I would fish a smaller one of these. And if there isn't those bait fish, I would recommend more of a fish looking like this. It's just a medium-sized fish with the bluish and yellow colors. It's very average, and on the other hand, here's a smaller size of that. And so I'd fish one of those, and those colors have definitely worked better for me. The blues and the yellows and more of those natural-looking colors instead of your bright oranges or that. Of course, you could use a red, black, or some darker colors and contrast if you're trying to imitate a crawfish. And I know that there's a lot of anglers that have success with crawfish lipless crankbaits. So bringing one of these through the water, this is early vegetation and the grass is just growing through the water. So what I'm going to do with one of these is I'm going to cast it over those bushes or those grass or the weeds, and I'm going to bring it, and then once I get through that grass, I'm going to buzz it a little faster, and you'll feel your vibration in your rod a little bit. And as you get through, if you get stuck, just a little jerk of the pole. But I'm going to bring it through there, and I'm going to mess with that top stuff. And because now that the grass is growing, the bass are going to be hanging around underneath that stuff, and they're going to be looking for bait fish like these. And so by bringing it through the grass, it's going to rattle the crankbait, and you're also going to move around the grass trying to get that reaction strike from that bass. And so these have worked great for me. I've caught many bass on them. And so you just have to work them right. And if you want to work it at a deeper, just reel in slower. If you want to bring it across your top, just reel in a little faster. That's why these are so diverse. And one of my favorites for not only early springtime, but throughout the springtime and into summer months, I have had success with these types of lipless crankbaits. So there we are, our lipless crankbait category. So the spinnerbait being my personal favorite, now is the best time to throw it out. And I say that because now that these fish are coming in the shallow waters, and this is more for a warmer spring day or to the middle of spring, this will get you some nice heavy hits. And it's the combination of a reaction style bait from the willow blades with the skirt and the jig head that gives the bass something to really hone in on. And so this spinnerbait, what I usually do is I tie it on, and I'll throw it, and I'll bring it nice and slow with a little twitches in it, and that'll get me some nice hits.
So I was throwing the spinnerbait out there, reeling in slow next to the weeds over there, and this guy a bite. So nice one.
I really just, there's different types of blades that you could use, and there's definitely a lot of variation in colors. My personal favorite for colors is if it's a sunny day, water's very clear, you're gonna want blades that are silver and that you're gonna get the shimmer from the sun. And if it's more of a murky water, you're gonna want to switch it to gold. If you're looking for a lot of commotion, you're gonna want to have a spinnerbait with what's called a Colorado blade. These Colorado blades add both shimmer, but the turning pattern in them add a lot of commotion in the water that really just get the bass excited and really wanting to hit these. So these spinnerbaits, I will use a darker solid color. In murky water, I'll use a lighter color. In more clear water, and so you can just kind of go from there. Blade color, definitely shiny silver, and clear sunny day, clear water, definitely a gold color, and a more murky water. Murky being you can't see past 6 feet in the water. So I would use those, and that is how I would pick out. Lure type is for when the bass bite gets slow and they become sluggish. This is one that you're going to fish on the bottom, and it's a very effective and simple way to fish that, if done right, you can definitely get some bass off of it. And this is my jig category.
So when fishing a jig in the summertime, it can be very effective if used correctly. This jig is meant to go through the bottom and either hop off or be dragged along the bottom, with the movement of this skirt attracting bass. So when used correctly, bass will come and they will look for an easy meal. This will be their easy meal. Like the jerkbait, it's when bass are more sluggish and not really biting. And so let's talk about color. Colors that I prefer are your natural colors, your browns, your oranges, your pumpkin colors, and of course the greens like I have right here.
Like and subscribe our YouTube channel, and find us on Twitter on the link below. Catch fish, period.